Hey guys, and welcome to our last flipped video lesson of Unit 1. Now today we're going to be performing operations with rational numbers. Now remember what the definition of rational numbers were. They were numbers that could be written as fractions, right? We're going to work some decimals in there too, probably in the practice, but normally decimals aren't nearly as much of a problem for us as fractions are. So operations with fractions there, they don't have to be as scary and as painful as we see over there in the picture is going to end up being, right? Now, there are four main operations we're going to do: addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. The first two we're going to focus on are addition and subtraction. The nice thing about addition and subtraction is they're really pretty similar. They just change one small detail. So we're going to kind of look at them together here. Now, the key for addition and subtraction is you must have a common denominator to add or subtract our fractions, right? We see in these two fractions, the denominator of both is 3. That's good, and Batman is happy. And trust me, you don't want to make Batman angry. However, in this example here, one denominator is 4, the other is 6. That is not good. We cannot add those fractions or you'll make babies cry. And you don't want to make babies cry, do you? Good. I didn't think so. So the question is, if we don't have a common denominator, like in our second example, what exactly do we do? And the answer is we have to find a common multiple of the denominators and change them. So let's take a look at this example here. 8/3 minus 1/6. Now, one easy way to guarantee you will always find a common multiple is to multiply each fraction by 1 in the form using the other denominators. Okay, that might be a little confusing sounding, but essentially what we're going to do is we're going to take the 8/3 and we're going to multiply it by 6/6 because the denominator of the other fraction is 6. We're going to take the 1/6 and we're going to multiply it by 3/3 because the other denominator is 3. By doing this, we're multiplying by 1. We learned from the multiplicative identity that that doesn't change anything. It comes out exactly the same as far as the value of the number goes. However, you can see by multiplying the first fraction by 6/6 and the second fraction by 3/3, we now have common denominators. It's the same value. We haven't affected the actual number that we would come out with when we simplify this. We've changed the way it looks so that we can do it with a common denominator there. Now, once we have our common denominator, it's important to remember that we only subtract or add the top, the numerators. The bottom stays the same. So 48 minus 3 is 45 over our common denominator 18. Now that can be simplified. We can divide the top and the bottom both by 9, and that would simplify to 5/2. And it is important to make sure you simplify your expressions are fully simplified there after we add, subtract, multiply, or divide. So that's adding and subtracting right there. So let's take a couple examples. I want you to take a few minutes, pause the video, and try and simplify these expressions. Ready? Pause. Okay, welcome back. Let's see how we did. Hopefully you noticed in the first two, we had common denominators. We didn't have to change anything. We just added the top in the first one and subtracted the top in the second one. Both of these, though, did need to be simplified after we added and subtracted. Now in 3 and 4, we did not have a common denominator. And what I want you to see here is that in number 3, notice I did not change the first fraction. Because if one of the denominators is a multiple of the other, 6 is a multiple of 3, 2 times 3 is 6, you can keep one of them the same and just change the fraction with the smaller denominator. So you can see the 2/3 changed to 4/6, the 5/6 stayed 5/6, and then I had a common denominator to add. Now in 4 and 10 is not a multiple of 4, so I did have to change both of them. I multiplied the first fraction by 10/10, multiplied the second fraction by 4/4, got my common denominator, subtracted, and simplified there. And again, I know you're probably sick of hearing me say this. If you have any questions on these, please ask in class. Yes, this is a skill that you learned a long time ago. However, from our experience, this is a skill that people have not learned very well. So we want to make sure we're solid with our operations and simplifying our expressions with fractions here. So we've talked about addition and subtraction. Now let's talk about multiplication. The nice thing about multiplication is we don't need common denominators. Now this is something we really do have to remember, though, that we cannot find common denominators with multiplication. Otherwise, we're going to be messing up what we're going to be getting as an answer. No common denominators with multiplication here. What's important to remember with multiplication is not that we have a common denominator, but that we multiply straight across. Not cross multiplication. That's something completely different that we never do when we're multiplying fractions. Straight across. So 5 times 8, 3 times 3, we get 40 over 9. That is fully simplified, so we leave it as an improper fraction there. 3 times 11, 4 times 6, 33 over 24. That can be simplified. Divide 3 in the top and the bottom to get 11 over 8. So that's multiplication. But what about division? Well, here's the catch. We are never actually going to divide fractions. Dividing fractions is really multiplying by the multiplicative inverse of the second value, of the second number. What does that mean? Well, remember, multiplicative inverse was the reciprocal. So what we're going to do if we're dividing fractions is we're going to take and change the division to multiplication and change the second fraction to its multiplicative inverse, to its reciprocal. So 5/3 divided by 8/3 is going to become 5/3 times 3/8. And at this point, it's just multiplication. Multiply straight across and simplify. Same deal down here with our second example. 3 over 4 divided by 11 over 6 is going to change to 3 over 4 times 6 over 11. Multiply straight across and simplify. Well, we've practiced. We looked at a few together. So why don't you try and practice some of these on your own? So go ahead and pause the video now. Welcome back. Let's see how we did. So in our multiplication, we just multiplied straight across. In number 1, we did have to simplify. In number 2, we didn't. Let's look at 3 and 4 here. So we can see we changed the division to multiplication. We take the multiplicative inverse of the second fraction and multiply straight across. Again, in 3, we had to simplify after multiplying. In number 4, we did not. Well, that's what we've got there, guys. That's a quick review of our operations with fractions here. We have reached not only the end of this flipped video lesson, but of Unit 1. You have the ability, guys, to go back and watch any of these videos again. If any of this material, as you're doing a study guide, as you're doing a worksheet, isn't fresh in your memory, you don't have to wait for class to ask questions. Go back, watch the video, check your notes, fill in anything you missed. Please feel free to always do that. They're always on Schoology and in our YouTube pages. Well, until we get to Unit 2, we'll see you later.